Hello Europa Universalis players, my name's Riemann, and today I want to share some exploits in the current patch. These were all discovered by the community from various forums, and in this video I'll be putting them all in one place. Now before I get to them, I need to go over a couple of disclaimers. First is that Paradox is pretty quick to patch exploits, and I make no guarantee that these work on later patches. At least 7 of these are likely to be gone soon, so get them while they're hot. Next, in the clips you'll see, I'm not doing Iron Man, so I can use console commands to get into a position to show these exploits off. However, these have all been tested and are confirmed to be working on Iron Man, so if you want to use these to get achievements, you absolutely can. With that said, let's get right into 10 exploits in Europa Universalis 4, patch 1.19. First up, we have Diplomat Cloning. This is both easy and useful, and takes advantage of hidden diplomats built into the game. What you do is simply right-click a country and click which action you want to, but don't hit accept or cancel. Repeat this for all the countries you want. Then hold down the C key to put it into action. The diplomatic action for the last few countries you picked will use your actual diplomats, but all the ones before these will use the hidden diplomats. You can recall your real diplomats while the clone diplomats will still be doing whatever job you assigned them to. This works with all diplomatic actions except for building spy networks. This effectively means that you can be increasing relations and doing counter-espionage on every other nation in the game at the same time. You can also use it to annex a whole bunch of vassals at once, or to get dozens of alliances since envoy travel time is backloaded. While on the topic of cloning things, it turns out you can clone soldiers too. All you need is an army with a mix of units like infantry, cavalry, and artillery. When the army enters battle, you can press the hotkey to split one type of units off to effectively double them. This defaults to Z for infantry, X for cavalry, and C for cannons. You can see here I'm squaring off against Russia, and I brought 10 units of artillery with me, which doesn't quite fill the entire back line. But then I press C, and all my cannons suddenly have little cannon babies, and my backline is entirely full despite the window still saying I have only 10,000 artillery that I started with. Testing has shown that these units deal damage, but also receive damage as damage to your real army, so it's probably best to reserve this to artillery, which doesn't take casualties when in the backline. Cannons serendipitously happen to be the most expensive part of an army, making this great at saving costs because those clone troops evaporate the day after battle, meaning they have no upkeep. It's also useful for surprising enemies and precipitating a stack wipe, or for turning the tide of a battle when you're moderately outnumbered. Next up is an old trick that some people say doesn't meet the exact definition of being an exploit, but which is extremely useful nonetheless. You don't get the aggressive expansion malice with countries that are shrouded in terra incognita. In this example, I take a whole bunch of land from the Mamluks, and you should focus on the reactions from Karaman and Ramazan. The two are basically equidistant from the land I take, but I haven't discovered Karaman yet while I have discovered Ramazan. Once I discover things, you can see a stark contrast. Ramazan has a -95 opinion towards me for aggressive expansion, and is more than willing to join a coalition against me, while Karaman right next door has 0 aggressive expansion penalty with me, and simply could not care less. This is useful when you're doing cheesy world conquest strats to avoid the AI dogpiling you in certain regions. The next exploit is also fairly old, and is a trick with the Holy Roman Empire. The game has several measures in place to stop huge nations like France from joining the HRE, with penalties based on nation size and the inability to move your capital into and out of the empire manually. However, Paradox neglected to stop countries from joining the HRE when their capital moves automatically. What you do is find the country you want, take the capital in a war, and add it to the empire as you would with any other province. Then you give them the land back and take their other capital in another war, and when you do this, the game will default their capital back to its original province, which is now part of the empire thanks to you, meaning they will be part of the empire now as well. This is useful if a bellicose country is sniping imperial provinces, and is especially overpowered if you plan to revoke the privilege or Renovatio Imperii soon, since they'll get sucked under your whim without you needing to spend admin points to core their provinces. It's a very powerful exploit when used by itself, but becomes especially ludicrous with the second HRE exploit, which allows you to get way more Imperial Authority from adding provinces than you should. Typically, adding a province to the empire only nets you 1 authority because you can only click the button to add a province once. The button stops being active when the province becomes a part of the empire, which is almost always as soon as the button is pressed. However, the buffer of the autosave at the end of the month or year makes this not true for a very brief period of time, meaning you can click the button rapidly to rack up several points of authority from a single province. What you need to do is wait for an autosave, press the Add to Empire button right before the autosave begins, and keep pressing it as fast as you can during the saving process. You also need to be holding the C key to accept the message that the province has been added. Boy, the C key seems to be causing all sorts of mischief, doesn't it? From my example here, you can see I'm able to triple or quadruple the authority I get from every province. This alone is massive and could lead to much faster reforms, but even this is but a shadow of the exploit's true potential. This exploit has a quirk in that it works better with worse computers. The length of the saving process is primarily determined by your disk write speed. I'm playing on a very nice SSD, so my autosaves happen quite quickly. However, if you're playing on a potato, you'll have much more time to click and rake in authority. You could also try running benchmarking programs in the background, or get software that macros clicks to be extremely fast. This next exploit uses the Dhimmi estate to convert a country quickly. It requires you to be a Muslim nation with at least 1 province of the religion you want to convert to. Give that province to the Dhimmi, then enrage the Dhimmi by taking their money, recruiting an inquisitor from the ulema, or by revoking their provinces in other areas. Then, when the Dhimmi are stewing, revoke their province that has a religion you want to convert to. This will spawn a pack of zealot rebels that will move about your country, taking over provinces and instantly converting them. You can do several things to help them along. First, you want to be at war with someone while they're converting because they can't fully enforce their demands while at war. This ensures they keep doing their magic conversions. Next, you can assign estates to rebel-controlled provinces. Do this to decrease the cooldown to when you can revoke Dhimmi provinces again to spawn another group of rebels. You'll have to take the provinces back to actually revoke them again, but this can be accomplished with 1,000 mercs hiding in a country you have military access with. You'll also want to set your forts to have no maintenance. When you do all this, you can get a half-dozen religious rebels moving about your country, converting things quite quickly. Since they can't break a country that's at war, you can get tons of your provinces flipped this way. In my game, it seems a few provinces were glitched and didn't convert when taken over, but the majority did, and it's more than enough to hit the ground running. This next one is small, but has been around for a while and will probably continue to exist for some time after this video. You can use armies as a short-term store of ducats and manpower. Nations can only demand your entire treasury plus 1 loan for peace. Here you can see they've demanded 65 ducats from poor little Ryukyu. However, if I pause the game and queue up a bunch of units, my treasury has decreased to where they'll only demand 5 ducats. I can then send this peace deal, cancel all my units to get my money back, and I'm left relatively unscathed. This is good for getting out of wars without losing all your cash. Our next exploit deals with natives getting feudalism before the arrival of Europeans. Typically, the game prevents this by allowing you to develop feudalism, but not allowing you to embrace it, and you need to embrace it to reform your religion. Without embracing it, it's effectively worthless. But if you take over another nation, develop their capital province, and then release them, they will automatically have feudalism embraced. Also, if you don't have access to infinite mana from the console and their capital happens to be in a province that's hard to develop, there's a way around this too. Develop their non-capital province and release them only as that province. You can see that feudalism is only present and not embraced, but by releasing them only with 1 province, you effectively reset where their capital is located. So if you take them over again and release them again with the same province, they should have it embraced the second time. This is useful for any American nation like the Aztecs or Incans or, say, Caddo, because Europeans can be slow to arrive. Paradox intended religious reforms to take about a century to coincide with the arrival of Europeans, but experienced players can do the reforms in half that time, meaning there's a lot of waiting around. This glitch gives you a way around that. This next exploit uses a glitch in the nation designer to do several cool things. A few patches ago, there was a glitch with custom nations that happened when you changed to a different time period. Paradox fixed this for pressing the bookmark buttons and the change date buttons, but not when you type the date in directly. What you do is go to a later date like 1820 and create a custom nation over the top of another nation. Then type in the regular start date of 1444. The game will reset the map, but your custom nation will still be lurking underneath. What you do is press the custom nation button, modify, and delete. This will change the map to reveal a nation that was underneath on the date when the custom nation was added, effectively allowing you to teleport nations through time. For example, you can play as Sardinia Piedmont in 1444. You can also teleport any land a nation held in history. Here I teleport the apogee of the Ottoman Empire from 1566 to the starting date of 1444. However, you should note that the history files means that nations won't have cores on any provinces that it didn't originally. You can mitigate this by releasing vassals and raising autonomy. The second and more powerful part of this exploit is that you can play as a custom nation itself. What you do is create a custom nation as you would normally. While you are doing this, make sure to click on the arrows to change the age of your heir once or twice, because my game crashed after unpausing if I didn't do this. Next, you can give yourself up to 800 points of provinces. Here I take all of Russia in 1700. When you're done, save your nation and go back to 1444. Again, click the Custom Nation button, but this time you want to modify your nation. Next, load your nation. You can now spend as many points as you want on ideas and ruler traits, but you should note that only your heir will spawn. Here I choose to make my heir an immortal 666 and give myself tons of ideas that push me way over the 800 point limit. That's okay though, because now you want to delete your nation. Then go into the game as a nation whose provinces you painted over, and you will see you can release your nation as a vassal. Do it and select play as released nation. You can see I'm now a nameless white blob with an immortal 666 heir and all the ideas I picked. I also start with cores on my land, unlike Russia, meaning I can create states for free. I don't have to tell you that this can make for games where you're silly overpowered, and that it makes world conquest a breeze. The final exploit is the hardest to set up, but is the most rewarding, generating nearly unlimited amounts of ducats, manpower, advisors, generals, and monarch points. It relies on abusing estates by quickly switching between a merchant republic and an oligarchic republic. It requires you to fulfill the requirements for both decisions, as well as having a large amount of stability cost reduction. You'll want stability to be at least 70% cheaper, but the lower you can go, the better. You can see some ways you can get this here. When you get to this point, you'll want to switch to a merchant republic. A quirk about merchant republics is that they don't have estates. The game doesn't just make estates go dormant, it resets them entirely. After you've waited a month for the game to update your estates, switch to an oligarchic republic and grant your estates all the land you can so they get influence. Then raise your stability to +1 and take everything you can from them, like money, manpower, papal influence, advisors, and of course monarch points. Then switch back to a merchant republic, raise your stability, and wait a month for estates to clear. Then switch back to an oligarchy, wait a month for estates to reappear, and do it again. Normally you'd have to wait decades to take stuff from the estates again, but since they're entirely reset, you can circumvent this. You can do this every 2 months while not at war to generate obscene amounts of everything you need. That's all the exploits I have for you today. Remember to try them out quickly before Paradox can patch them. Also, I put links in the description for where you can get more information for each of these. Be sure to check them out. My name's Riemann, and until next time, thanks for watching.